Now today I want to talk about simple tree grafting. What I'm going to do is graft some peach sticks onto a nectarine tree. Those are the sticks I got from a friend, and there's the nectarine tree. It's probably a bit late now to do grafting, but I'll show you the principle anyway. It's best to do it when it's just before it flushes. This one's flushed quite well already, but it might still work. Now there are two parts to a graft. Obviously the bits that you're grafting onto the tree, and they are called the Scion, and the tree itself that you're going to graft onto is the rootstock, in this case the nectarine. Right, let's get started. What I'm going to need is a sharp knife. I'm just using a Stanley knife with a fairly new blade. Make sure that there's no contaminants on the blade and any disease, so I use a bit of methylated spirits on tissue just to clean it. And the same with my secateurs, just make sure that they're nice and clean. And then I select a piece of Scion. Always make sure you know which is the top and which is the bottom, because if you put it upside down it's not going to work. So I'll just cut this one off about there for the purposes of the graph. And then what you do is you take your knife and you just cut an angle on it like that. And then I'll just show you the anatomy of this so that you know what you're trying to achieve. Okay, so there we've got the cut. Now, if you look very closely, this is bark, then the next layer is phloem, the next layer is cambium, and the next layer is just the hard wood. Now, the only thing you need to know about grafting, and if you forget everything else, that's all you need to know, is that the cambium layer of the Scion is in contact closely with the cambium layer of your stock, and that they're fixed in place so they can't move around, and that they're sealed so that they don't dry out and they have time to form a physiological union. So first you make a physical union between the two, make sure they can't shift around, and the second is you hope after 3 weeks or a month that there'll be a physiological union between the two cambium layers. And if that happens, then you'll find that your Scion starts flushing and leaves come out, and then you know you've got success. So let's do that. So that's our Scion cut. Now this is just a crude drawing to explain in detail the anatomy of the graft. The black on the outside is obviously the bark with a few buds marked on it. And then the next layer, the dotted line, is phloem. That's a mushy layer just under the bark. And then the cambium, which is the important layer, which has to be in good contact. The Scion and the stock cambium layers must be in good contact. And obviously it's important to have some buds on your Scion, otherwise you're not going to get any flushing, because that's where the flushing takes place. Now it's important to choose a twig on the stock that's more or less the same thickness as your Scion, and then you trim it in the same way as you've trimmed your Scion. So I'll just nip it off there to make it manageable. And then we estimate the length of the cut we need. Let's go to about there, and then we cut the same shape like that. All right, now we're going to do the whip and tongue method, so just make sure that I've cleaned enough off. Yep. And then what I do is I cut a little tongue into my Scion. So we go about 2/3 of the way up, and then we just work a little slit like that, and then from the depth, there's your tongue, and then from the depth of your tongue you do another one in the opposite direction on your stock like that, and then the trick is to just marry the two together so that the two tongues, sounds a bit obscene, but the two tongues are in close contact with each other like that. And then we'll shorten this one by cutting it there. And then the last thing we have to do is just stabilize it with a bit of tape, and that also seals it so that it doesn't dry out. So I've got a bit of what they call grafting tape, so I'll start. It's best to start at the bottom and work towards the top, because that's the best way to seal water. If you go the other way, then water gets between the joints of your tape. So we'll just start off there like that. Keep that all lined up. Quite tight, you don't have to go very tight. If you go too tight, it can cut in when it starts flushing, so I don't go very tight, just enough to seal it so that moisture, so that it doesn't dry out. Because if it dries out, then obviously you're not going to get a good physiological union. There we go. That's all there is to it. And we leave it about 3 weeks, and we hope we're going to see some flushing coming out of the Scion about here somewhere. You can, sometimes people put a little drop of tree sealer on the end there to stop it drying out, but usually not necessary. I always like to cut it at an angle so that any water lands on there, it runs off. And one more thing, it's an idea to remove any shoots off the stock, because you want to encourage it to send the sap up your graft and then start flushing on these buds on the graft. So you'll have to just watch it for a few weeks while you're waiting for the flushing on the graft, and just keep removing any shoots that are happening on the stock. Then this is just a crude drawing of the principle of the whip and tongue graft. The Scion and the stock are cut at an angle like that, and then you put a little slit in each one and you form a little tongue, and when you push them together, the tongues combine to form a very stable joint, almost like a carpenter's joint, to keep everything stable. And not only will this give you a greater surface area of cambium contact, but also gives you a very stable physical joint. In my next video, I'm going to show you a novel method of grafting using an electric drill. So if you want to watch that, just click on the video that's above the screen at the moment. Now, if you found this useful, please like and share this video and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already done so. And if you have any comments or questions, we'd love to hear from you. Just scroll right down to the bottom and you'll find the comments section there. Thank you very much for watching.